In this video, we will show you how to replace your front bumper upper mounting bracket on this Nissan Altima. This will be located behind your front grille. Let's get into it. Okay friend, let's get started on our job. Open the hood and we'll remove our forward radiator cover. For this, you'll find that it has several push pins that make their way across. To remove any of the push pins, lift out the center to unlock it and then lift out the outer portion. You can use a trim tool or a small screwdriver. As you remove them, just give them a quick inspection, make sure they are reusable, otherwise you can just go ahead and replace them. Now we can take hold of this and remove it from the vehicle. The next thing we want to do is have a secondary hood prop that can hold the hood up for us, and we can have the vehicle's hood prop in the down position. Now let's continue on removing several more push pins by removing the center first to unlock them and then lifting out the outer portion as well. Now we can remove this piece. We'll use our trim tool for the push pins again. Let's make our way up towards the washer fluid tank. Just twist that off to the side. Once you've done that, we'll continue on to removing the hood prop from this area. You'll find that the hood prop rod itself does have a small curved area that you will want to pay attention to. Just twist this as needed. Sometimes the plastic portion will come out, other times it will stay in. Let's set this aside. Now we'll continue on with a 10mm socket or some long nose pliers. You're looking for some push clips that come through from the bottom towards the top that are holding a wiring harness in place. That wiring harness will make its way from here all the way underneath this area. To dislodge this, I tend to use a 10mm socket with an extension. We'll just push this right on top of there, squeezing in each of those ears, and you should be able to separate that wiring harness from the area. As we continue breaking this free, we'll just be paying attention to make sure it doesn't get caught or bound up in any way. With slack from that wiring harness, let's continue on to disconnecting the horns. Before you do so, it's a good idea to mark where each one of these wiring harnesses goes to. You can just use a crayon, whatever you might happen to have. We'll mark the connector and the horn itself on just one of the wiring harnesses. There's this horn. We'll do the same to the other horn, then we can start disconnecting these. A quick check for corrosion. Assuming it looks good, you can just set it aside. Reach down in here. This one's going to be the hardest one. Set this wiring harness aside. Now we can start removing some mounting bolts. You'll find that you have two 10mm headed mounting bolts hidden behind your front bumper cover. To gain access to these, carefully take hold of the front bumper cover and flex it away. At this point, we have a clear view of this one right here, and the other one's just on the other side. You can use a ratcheting 10mm headed wrench for this if needed. Now we can set this back in place, and we'll continue on by removing 4 10mm headed mounting bolts. You'll find that you have 2 on each side of this bracket. Now let's make our way to the center of that bracket. You'll find a 10mm headed mounting bolt. Now that we have this bolt out of here, you do have a lot of room from this bracket, but you're going to have to remove this latch so you can be able to pull this up and out of position. Before you remove the mounting bolts that hold this in place, it's important to mark its positioning, so when you go to reinstall it, it's in the same exact position. You can mark that with anything such as a crayon or marker, whatever's best for you. Just going to make a quick outline here. We'll get this as close as possible when we go to reinstall it. With that marked, we'll remove our 3 12mm headed bolts. At this point, we can wiggle this around quite a bit, but there is one locating pin which is down inside of this area. To separate this, we'll just use a small prying device. We don't want to break anything, we just need to flex it just enough that we can remove that locating pin from the hood release. At this point, you can pivot this around. We don't need to fully remove it, just lift it up enough that we can start removing our front bumper cover bracket. We can pivot this. We'll take hold of this and start lifting it up and out of here. There it is, friend. Now we can take this over to the bench. We're going to be looking in the center. You remember we had those 2 10mm headed bolts that held a bracket to this area? We're going to remove each of these 2 clips. To do this, we'll be using a small pick. You can use a screwdriver, whatever works best for you. It essentially just kind of pull out the center there and then pry this down and out of position. Just watch your fingers. Here we are. Show you in 1 second. That's what the clip looks like right there. We'll do the same to the other one. There it is, friend. Let's prepare our brand new bracket for installation. We'll be taking those clips that we had removed from the original and slide them into the center position on the new one. If you have a hard time sliding it on there, you can go ahead and give it a couple loving bonks with a hammer. Just be careful not to damage anything. Let's get this over to the vehicle. Now it's time to install the upper bumper bracket. At this point, we're going to have to start flexing the front grille a little bit so we can start bringing this into position. As we come across, you want to pay attention along where your hood latch is. We'll just gently pull this out of place. Continuing along over to the other side, we're flexing this as well. Let's continue pressing this in. There we are. At this point, we can continue on with our mounting bolts. You should be able to maneuver this around as needed. To install the mounting bolts, take some long nose pliers. At this point, we can reach down in here and we'll start it into position. Once you have each of them started in, you can go ahead and snug them up. Center here. Before we tighten these, we want to make sure that we have it in the proper positioning. If you were to flex on the front bumper cover here, you'll find that it only goes so far. So if you had this pushed too far, you're going to have a serious issue with your push pins in the end. We'll just try to make sure this is centered so this is in a relaxed position, and then we can tighten this. Now it's time to resecure the hood latch, but before you do, we need to reattach the hood release cable from the back of the hood latch. Align the hood release cable with the mounting bracket. Once it's in the proper position, go ahead and press it in. Let's slide that hood release cable into the bracket. Hardest part's just getting it aligned. We'll use some pliers just to make sure it's completely seated. You don't want this falling off, otherwise you're going to have an issue trying to release your hood. Confirm connection. Now we can start resecuring this in position. As you remember, when we were removing this, we had that small locating tab that I had told you about. That fits into this area of the front of the latch itself. We're going to have to come in at an angle and start gently pressing this towards the rear of the vehicle to slide it into position. Once you have it in there, we'll continue on to putting in all 3 of our 12mm mounting bolts. Before you tighten them, you need to ensure that you have this in the proper positioning. You already made the markings. Go ahead and line it up and then tighten each of these bolts. We'll just double check our markings real quick. Test the functionality. Now it's time for the wiring. We'll take this and start bringing it into the proper positioning. Make our way under here. I'm just going to connect this one in for now. At this point, it'll continue all the way under here. Before we go too far, we want to remember that we did mark the wiring. One of the wires on each one of these wiring harnesses. Start securing these. Double check this one. Let's start reconnecting the horns. That one's got my marking, so I know that's the top one for me. I'll just do the other one first. Press it in, listen for a click, give it a light tug, make sure that's secure. Same for the other one. Let's make our way over here. Got my markings. This horn's kind of loose over here. Double check to make sure the wiring's secured. Moving along the front area here, we'll continue on with our 2 10mm headed bolts. Go ahead and start those in and snug them up. Up. get this plastic piece in position here. Starting our push pins on those. Lock them in with the center. Bring this hood prop into the area. We'll hook it around, latch it in. Should just press into position. There we are. While we're here, we can resecure our washer fluid tank as well. Let's make our way over here, remove this secondary prop rod. We'll take this and put it in place. Let's put in our push clips. We want to only do the push clips that hold this blue area down to the bracket. We'll get this in position and put in all of our push tabs. Okay, friend, we've got our vehicle back together. At this point, go ahead and close the hood, take your vehicle for a road test, and listen for funny noises. Aside from that, thanks for watching.
When only the best will do, demand TRQ. The only company that lets you view before you do. TRQ is committed to offering the highest quality aftermarket auto parts that are engineered for peace of mind. Thanks for using and viewing with TRQ.